Welcome to Humanity's Epiphysic. This is part 2 of my discussion of the 4 elements. In part 1, I made several assertions. I said that life is a reciprocal relationship between consciousness and creative will, otherwise known as yin and yang. I also said that yin and yang give rise to the next level of complexity, which is the cycle of the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. I identified these elements as allegories for 4 fundamental aspects of life: choices, matters, perceptions, and felt knowings. And I pointed out that they form a cyclical progression. In this video, I will probe more deeply into the question: how exactly do yin and yang give rise to these 4 elementary aspects of life? In part 1, we observed that the zodiac is a cycle which contains 3 cycles of the 4 elements. Starting with Leo, we proceed around the zodiac: fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. We will look at the greater cycle that is the zodiac in depth in future videos. For now, we are just looking at the cycle of the 4 elements and seeking to understand it more deeply. Since the 4 elements arise out of yin and yang, let's start with them. The Tai Jisoo is an elegant and profound symbol. Whether by chance, intuition, or from a deep understanding lost in the mists of time, it is actually a diagram that depicts important information about the way the universe works. But that is a topic for another video. For now, we are just going to focus on the cycle that it suggests. Here we have a golden orb oscillating between yin and yang. Notice that it is only oscillating in 1 dimension, but the circle is 2-dimensional. So let's make the oscillation 2-dimensional. Whereas before we could only map 2 distinct phases of the cycle, i.e. yin and yang, now we can map 4. There is still a yin phase and a yang phase to the cycle, but now the extra dimension also maps the yinward and yangward motion of the orb in its progression around the cycle. So we have a yinward phase and a yangward phase, and these divide each of the yin and yang phases into 2 to make 4. How do each of these 4 phases express themselves? The orb is now about to enter the yangward yang phase. Recalling that yang is synonymous with creative will, we can see that this phase of the cycle represents willing one's will. In other words, it is a choosing process. At this fundamental level, there are only 2 things to choose: yin or yang, i.e. knowing or creative will. In this phase of the cycle, the thing being chosen is a choice. We can identify this choosing phase as the fire element. As the fire element is traversed, a choice is being made. Notice that as the orb enters the fire phase, the arrow that indicates the direction of its motion is pointing fully towards yang. That is to say that it has maximum yangwardness or yangward motion. Yangward motion represents the fiery input of energy into the choosing process. As the orb travels yangward, its motion turns and the yangward energy diminishes. At maximum yang, the choice is fully formed, like molten metal poured into a mold. Notice that the arrow is now neither pointing towards yang nor yin. The input of energy has stopped. The arrow now shows that the motion is fully towards yinwardness. In other words, it is neither yangward nor yinward, but is at a point of maximum change from yangward to yinward motion. So the next phase is the yinward-yang phase. The orb is still in the yang phase of the cycle. It is in fact only halfway through the yang phase, but the creative choosing is already complete. Now we are beginning to become conscious of that fully formed choice. In other words, we are beginning to sense our material reality. We can identify this phase as the earth element. As the earth phase is traversed, notice that the arrow points more and more towards yin. This yinward motion is opposite to the previous addition of energy in the fire phase. It is a cooling off process where our passionately chosen choices solidify into earthy realities as we absorb the information from our senses. As the orb passes into the next phase, we can see that it is crossing into the yin half of the cycle. The sensory data has now been fully received. It is known in a crude sense, but is not yet fully known. The yinward yin phase is a process of knowing what we know, or, in other words, of forming a sharply focused perception out of our now fully absorbed raw sensory data. We can identify this phase as the air element. As the orb traverses the air element, notice that the arrow points less and less towards yin. At maximum yin, the arrow is once again pointing neither yinward nor yangward. The knowledge of the choice is now fully perceived, and it is easy to make the mistake of thinking that that means the knowing of it is complete. However, half the yin section of the cycle has yet to be traversed. That tells us something very important about the remaining water element, which is the process of choosing to know. Knowledge being infinite is never completely known. Any individual choice, when known, always opens a door on a new choice to know more. Thus the water element is not only about adding depth to our knowing by feeling the consequences of our perceptions, it also looks to future choices that flow from our current perceptions. Thus, when we have fully traversed the water element section of the cycle, we can see that the arrow is now pointing fully yangward. In other words, choosing to know the meaning of our new perceptions at a feeling level has fired us up with the passionate energy to make new choices. So this is the cycle of the elements. We can see that they arise because the cycle of yin and yang, via which we come to know our creative will, is a progression. And that progression includes both information about what is being known, i.e. how much yin or yang is apparent, but also the rate at which the apparent yin or yang is changing. In other words, there is a yin and yang dimension and also a dimension of what I have called yinwardness and yangwardness. That is all I want to say for now, except to highlight two important points. Firstly, there is a serious error that is hard to avoid in relation to this subject. It is very easy to get a wrong idea about yin and yang. It seems very much as if they are polar opposites. In fact, I have rarely come across the correct understanding of their relationship in metaphysical writings. Indeed, the fact that I have employed a yin-yang axis in my diagrams seems to suggest that yin and yang are two poles of the same thing. However, I cannot overstress the fact that they are not opposites. They are actually the same thing seen from reciprocal perspectives. How that works and why it gives the appearance of polar opposites is an issue connected to the greater cycle, which is the zodiac, and to the Taijitsu and what it says about the way the universe works. But that is a topic for other videos. Secondly, I want to highlight an apparent contradiction between what I have presented in this video and established astrological theory about the 4 elements. In established astrology, the fire and air elements are seen as masculine, and the earth and water elements are seen as feminine. This seems to contradict the idea that the air element is yinward yin, because yin is a very feminine principle. Understanding why such a yin element is more heavily associated with masculine traits is also something explained by deeper knowledge of the zodiac. That understanding will unfold over many videos. For now, I will just say that as the cycle of the zodiac progresses, our creative will becomes known. By the halfway point, which is the cusp of Aquarius, our knowing has absorbed and integrated our creative will so much that it manifests a very yang appearance. So, for example, a planet with one of the most yin essences, Saturn, which has an air squared essence, is actually one of the most masculine planets. Thank you for your attention.